The first snapshot for Minecraft 1.21.2 is here. 24W33A with reworked item rarity, updated bundles, new experiments for both redstone and minecart, and more bug fixes than have been in any other individual snapshot ever. My name is SlySlime and this is a look at all the changes. Let's start with bundles. The bundle interface has been revamped. You can now see 8 different types of items in a bundle. If there are more, the top 2 rows are shown and the rest are hidden. Another difference is that you can now pull any of the visible items directly out of the bundle from inside the inventory. Right-clicking the bundle still takes the first item, but you can now also use the number keys or scroll wheel to select a different item and then right-click to take that item. The item that will be taken out of a bundle will show as poking out of the bundle. You can still put items into the bundle in the inventory, but the control used is now left-clicking. Right-clicking always takes an item out. There's also now a sound for failing to insert something into a bundle. You can still empty the entire bundle onto the ground by using it in the world. The crafting recipe for a bundle has now changed. A bundle is now crafted from 1 string and 1 piece of leather. On to more experiments. There's a new experiment containing various redstone-related changes called Redstone Experiments. Like other experiments, this toggle must be enabled when creating a world. There's currently no target release for these changes, they're a place to try out things to get feedback. So what are the changes? First of all, Redstone Wire has been changed to vastly improve its performance. Redstone Wire now only triggers block updates on blocks that may receive power from the wire, and before a wire causes block updates, the new signal strength of the entire line is updated. The update order of Redstone Wire has changed with the goal to make wire behave the same regardless of where it is and how it's oriented in the world. When a line of wire turns on, the wires closer to the source of power will cause block updates first. When it turns off, the blocks closer to the source that turned off will update first. When distances are the same, the order is chosen randomly. The order in which blocks around the wire get updates is now dependent on the direction power travels along that line. The order is currently back, front, left, right, down, up, or with left and right swapped depending on that random choice. That random choice is made once for the entire wire, not once per block. The other new experiment in this version is called Minecart Improvements. This is an experiment testing changes to minecarts with the goal of making vehicle travel, like with minecarts, a viable option for players compared to other late-game options, like Elytra. These changes make minecarts a smoother, more consistent and predictable experience, but also break some mechanisms that rely on some of the old minecart quirks, notably the rail snapping used by piston bolts and some storage tech mechanisms. Just like with the redstone changes, this experiment has no given target release, but serves as a place to experiment and gather feedback. So let's get into the specifics. Minecarts now articulate their movement better when moving fast, sticking to the rail even at faster speeds and smoothly turning around corners rather than snapping back and forth. There's a new accessibility option that is only available when the experiment is active that lets players turn with the turning of a minecart, as if you are actually riding the thing. This defaults to being off and can only be changed in worlds with the Minecart Improvements experiment turned on. Another new setting is a new game rule, Minecart Max Speed. This changes the maximum speed of minecarts from the default of 8 blocks per second, which matches the previous max speed of minecarts, up to a maximum of 1000 blocks per second. Setting the game rule doesn't mean that you can actually get a minecart up to that speed, since factors like air resistance still affects carts, but minecarts can at least get very fast. That game rule also only exists in worlds with the Minecart Improvements experiment turned on. Another change is that minecarts are now much better at doing jumps, keeping their vertical momentum when the track ends in a slope and articulating their tilt while in the air. Their movement sound also stops playing while they are in the air. With the experiment on, you can no longer place minecarts inside each other. That goes for both players and for dispensers. It is now instead easier to place minecarts next to each other on a track. And moving minecarts are now better at consistently picking up mobs. In addition to breaking piston bolts and contraptions that rely on rail snapping, mechanisms that rely on precise minecart timing may also not work with this experiment, since the new simulation may have slight changes in speed, movement distance, friction, and so on. And with that, let's turn our attention to non-experimental changes. In Portal news, the portal cooldown of projectiles and vehicles has changed. Minecarts and boats now need to leave the portal for half a second to be able to travel again. Projectiles now only need to leave the portal for 2 ticks, that is 1/10 of a second. Lots of portal-related bug fixes as well. Ender pearls now deal damage when used through portals, and now work properly even if the player has relogged and not visited the dimension the pearl is in. Fast-moving projectiles no longer glitch through another portal without entering it, which also applies to creative players when using Elytra or a Riptide Trident. Riding a minecart through a portal now preserves your facing relative to the minecart, and holding up a shield when entering a portal no longer causes a desync, which could lead to being shielded when you look like you shouldn't be. When you leave the end for the first time, doing so while riding an entity no longer skips the credits of the game, and after seeing the credits, your attributes are no longer reset. Leaving the end when your spawn point is set to a respawn anchor no longer uses up charges from that respawn anchor. Let's talk about blocks and items. The rarity system has been updated, which means the colors of various item names have been changed. The rarity of an item indicates how easy the item is to get in terms of how rare it is in loot tables, how far you might have to travel to find it, the challenge level in obtaining it, and the total amount of such blocks or items in the world. In this new system, items crafted from other items are now at least as rare as their ingredient. Smithing templates now have a new way to display their name, showing the smithing template in the hover text instead of the name. Some news to banner patterns as well. Ominous banners no longer lose their rarity when renamed using an anvil. Each banner pattern now includes their pattern type in the name, and patterns now have unique icons. There are 2 new banner patterns brought over to match Bedrock Edition. Field Masoned, crafted from paper and bricks, which gives the bricks pattern, and the Border Indented pattern, crafted from paper and vines, which gives the curved pattern. Those 2 patterns now require that you have the pattern item to be able to use them in a loom. Speaking of looms, the pattern slot in the loom now also has a new look. Dispensers firing a wind charge no longer trigger the wrong particles to show, and holding a breeze rod now looks just like holding a blaze rod. And redstone torches now have a new look. This also applies to the torch components on other blocks, such as repeaters and comparators. Let's talk about performance. There are several new options for reducing CPU and GPU usage in this version. The first one is a video option called Reduce FPS When, which has 2 options. The default is AFK. This will make your game move progressively to a lower FPS cap when the game is not receiving any input. First going to 30 FPS maximum after 1 minute, and then going to 10 FPS maximum after a total of 10 minutes idle. The other option is Minimized, which limits the FPS of the game to 10 when it is minimized. The other new option is a server option called Pause When Empty Seconds. This defaults to 60, and if set to a positive number, will cause the server to pause its simulation when no player has been online for that long. This comes together with optimizations reducing the CPU load of a server when it is waiting to begin processing the next tick, as well as other optimizations for saves, explosions, and having a large amount of item frames. Other optimizations have also been made to improve the general tick rate performance of servers when using high render distances, and the tick rate impact of loading and generating chunks has been reduced. In structure news, trial chambers have been updated in this version. There are new variations to the hallways, which includes new encounters, which are short challenges leading to the larger chambers. The empty chests in the chambers have been replaced by barrels with hoppers pointed into them, highlighting their purpose as places to drop off and sort loot. The beds in the intersections are now of random colors. Together with this, bug fixes for trial chambers as well. Some ominous vaults could fail to generate, which is now fixed, as well as several missing or incorrect blocks in some of the trial chamber pieces. Traps could sometimes generate behind the walls in trial chambers, which is now fixed. Some of the trial spawners that should spawn slime generated in a location where they couldn't spawn at all, which is fixed in this version. And some of the silverfish spawners had a similar problem, or it took a very long time to spawn mobs, which is also fixed. When the do mob spawning game rule was switched on and off, trial spawners would rapidly change block states, which is now also fixed. A fix to another structure as well. A leaf that was marked natural in one of the Woodland Mansion rooms is now instead marked as persistent and will not decay. Let's talk about other gameplay changes. Putting 2 undamaged items into an anvil and trying to rename them no longer causes one of the items to be consumed. Being smashed to death by a mace now has a unique death message. Player name was smashed by attacker, or player name was smashed by attacker with weapon. And feeding parrots a cookie while holding a mace no longer grants the overkill advancement. Suspicious stew recipes now show up in the recipe book, and the number of items in the fuel slot of a furnace no longer affect how many items are moved when a recipe book slot is clicked. A bug letting players duplicate string from tripwires has been fixed. Dropping a full stack of items with Ctrl and Q with the creative inventory open no longer deletes that stack, and you can now use Ctrl and Q to drop a full stack of items from the result slot of a crafting table. Wind charges no longer save you from fall damage if you've landed and started falling again. Bone meal is no longer consumed on ferns, grass, seagrass, and sea pickles when they cannot grow. Blocks without collision that react to entities now react properly even to entities moving very fast. One example is tripwires that will now detect projectiles flying through them very fast. You can no longer fill cauldrons with powder snow or lava underwater. TNT that blows up in water no longer blows up block-like entities like item frames, paintings, and armor stands. And projectiles now collide with the world border properly. You can no longer spawn underwater in some worlds, and you no longer sometimes glitch into walls when the mount you were riding is killed. Raids have been fixed, so raids starting 112 blocks above the ground no longer immediately spawn all the waves and then ending the raid with a player win. And illagers in a raid can no longer get stuck trying to pick up a leader banner they can't reach. Some Explorer maps would generate without showing the icon to the target of the map, which is fixed in this version. The distance flown statistic no longer increases rapidly while you stand inside the Ender Dragon's hitbox, and the distance by Elytra statistic is no longer the double of the distance you fly. The experience level no longer wraps over to 0 after becoming too large, and you can no longer end up in a state where you can use the debug stick without holding it by picking it up with the inventory open. And walking around now properly resets your idle time and prevents you from being kicked for being idle. In mob news, wolves can now also be fed all types of fish, including cooked variations, as well as rabbit stew, like on Bedrock Edition. Plenty of tweaks and fixes to bees in this version. Bees now wander around randomly for less time after leaving their nest or hive, and bees that have a home hive or nest will stay closer to it to lower the chance that they end up lost. They can also take much longer to travel back to their known hive before giving up and trying to find a new one. Bees now use up pollen when pollinating cave vines instead of pollinating them infinitely. Bees are now less likely to be stuck on corners and much less likely to keep trying to reach a flower that it cannot get to. Bees no longer sometimes freeze right before entering a hive, and blowing up a hive now makes bees get angry at the closest player. Squid and glow squid collision and movement has been fixed to stop them flying out through air or through collisions, and rubber banding. There are now also baby versions of squids, glow squids, and dolphins. These only spawn naturally, you still cannot breed these mobs. There are also now small and large variants of the salmon, in addition to their regular sized one. And the model for pufferfish spikes is no longer broken. Baby llamas no longer have the size of their heads change when they turn. Breezes now have a higher fidelity animation for jumping that was already present on Bedrock Edition, and a bug that would cause breezes to forget about a player as soon as line of sight was broken has been fixed. Breezes no longer have a minimum range needed to attack a target. Mobs will now walk around or over azalea saplings instead of getting stuck on them. Monster spawners will no longer try to spawn hostile mobs when the difficulty is set to peaceful. Zoglin spawn eggs now create baby Zoglins randomly when used, just like other spawn eggs of mob types with baby variants. When a sub-variant of zombies like husks, drowned, or zombified piglin tries to spawn a reinforcement, it would spawn a regular zombie. They will now instead spawn reinforcements of the same type as themselves. When spawning from portals, baby zombified piglin jockeys would immediately teleport back through the portal. That is fixed in this version. Bats can now spawn at any height, not just below sea level, as long as it is dark enough and there's a solid block to spawn on. The spawn animals and spawn NPCs server.property settings have been removed. Mobs now get a fall damage attack bonus from using a mace, just like players do. And mobs now get armor starting from the head and moving down, rather than starting from the feet and moving up. Piglins now hold loaded crossbows in a two-handed grip. And leis that hold an item for a player can no longer be set on fire using Sweeping Edge and Fire Aspect. Some game rule changes in this version. Mob griefing off has been fixed, so Breeze's wind charges can't move or break armor stands, and attacks from Ravagers and Goats can't knock back armor stands. Mobs can no longer pop off paintings, item frames, and leads when mob griefing is off. Lead drops are now affected by the Do Entity Drops game rule, and the Do Limited Crafting game rule now works with Suspicious Do Crafting. In single player, spectating an entity while spectators generate chunks is set to false no longer gets you stuck spectating that entity. Lots of visual fixes in this version. The enchantment glint on shields now has the same reduced glint as enchanted armor to make the pattern more visible. Elisha no longer appear to unfold if you've been flying in first-person mode and switch to third-person. Sneaking players' name tags are now properly visible again. The Mining Fatigue full screen effect no longer plays in reverse. Plenty of fixes for the sky in this version too. Stars are no longer smaller than they should be, and the sky fog is now cylindrical again and no longer stutters. Clouds no longer have visible seams in them and are no longer generated further to the south and east than north and west. The ominous item spawner animation no longer breaks in levels that have existed for a long time, and the Dragon Eggs model has been fixed. The bottom faces of vaults now properly cull when covered by solid blocks, and block hitboxes no longer break translucent blocks rendering behind them in fast and fancy modes. The head overlay in spectator mode no longer shows the hat layer after turning it off in the skin customization options, and projectiles no longer flicker when turned a certain direction in the world. Small drip leaves now have the same pixel aspect ratio on their top and bottom halves, and no longer have the very top of their stem intersecting the leaves. Paintings and item frames that are inside non-solid blocks like powder snow no longer Z-fight, and it no longer rains in unloaded chunks, even in biomes that do not have rain. In user interface news, the autosave text is now in the right location on the screen. The animations on some screens stuttered and moved too slowly, which is now fixed. Many elements of the recipe book, like tabs and arrows, no longer cover the item held in the mouse cursor, and the buttons on the Optimize World screen now have the right tab order. In addition to this, a huge amount of grammar changes, punctuation changes, and similar text fixes have been made. In sound news, depleting a respawn anchor now plays a sound. Spawners now have unique sounds for placing and breaking them, and walking on them. And frogs now play an eating sound when fed a slime ball. Some social interaction news. Skin reporting no longer has defamation or threat to harm other categories, but now does have a sexually inappropriate category. The screen for name reports now has a description to clarify that only the name is what is being reported. And finally, in stability news, several crashes and connectivity issues have been fixed, like when enchanting a crossbow with a level 0 quick charge enchantment. That is not all. This version also comes with Datapack version 49 and Resource Pack version 35, with new item components and things in the game being made data drivable, including goat horn instruments. If you want to see all about that, keep an eye out for separate videos here on the channel, because this is certainly enough for one video. If you liked it, YouTube provides a handy button just for that down below. My name is Sliced Lime, thank you for watching, I'll see you next time.